the black pieces. Robo Williams, what a sick name. Let's go ahead and play our tried and tested c5 against most everything that isn't e4. Now, I really do enjoy these c5, d5 setups. My opponent is blitzing out their moves, even though it's a rapid game. Keep in mind how weird that is, right? Like, that's just very weird to me. They're applying pressure to the center. Now, I could push immediately, but do I like this? A part of me really does like this. We are going to question where this knight is going. I think this is important. So they immediately are trying to punish this c-pawn, which, I mean, does make some sense. I could go b5 and say, go ahead, take it. I think that's also reasonable. I really like the move knight d7. Fully supporting. I also really like b6. Now, this is a tactic. But keep in mind, if they take here, we can drop this back. I get one of their key defenders. You take it. The king takes. And I'm out in exchange, but I actually really like this. So the idea here is that they are going to probably play knight takes d4. We're going to win a knight. They're going to take the rook. We're going to counterattack their rook. There's a move I missed. They have the move bishop c6 check there, which forces knight d7. And I don't like my knight going... they don't have that. My knight can jump back to c6. See, I'm missing things. This is kind of how I thought about playing the move b6 anyways. I'm genuinely not worried about this bishop. Now, they are probably deep into calculation on knight takes d4. They close it up. Holy schmoly. They don't want any part of that. And to me, that's a big red flag. Big red flag. Why? Well, to me, there's something I noticed about their knight. It doesn't have any free squares, which means this traps the knight. And so what we're going to do is we are going to bury the position. We're going to bury the bishops with the idea of discovering a defense here. And we have a threat. We have a threat right now. It's to play b5. And the knight has no homes. And I think that's a very strong continuation, even at the cost of maybe damaging our bishops and damaging this structure over here if we're not going to fianchetto. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to fianchetto. But I think to do this in order to try to trap a knight, it's a pretty healthy move in its own right? It's a difficult threat to deal with. They probably have to play a move like b3, in which case, I don't have to play b5. And b3 is very weakening in its own right. I can leave this pawn structure and say we're going to play with this pawn structure. The knight is still horrible here. In b3, they can't ever go bishop b2. So I think b3 is forced in order to give the knight room to go anywhere. They know what my threat is. So they do this, defending the knight. That is very, very interesting. I should calculate. So if we do this, it looks like they're just going to sack the knight. And I don't think that's a terrible decision by them. Yeah, they are going to sack the knight and try to just crazily open up the position. But now, one more time, I want to ask yourself, do we have to take the knight? And the answer to that should be no. It's still trapped anyway. That is something that I think a lot of really good chess players miss, is that we're not in a rush to take the knight. Now, they do have a defensive resource that I slightly missed here, that we have to be incredibly careful with how we choose to keep the knight defended. They have this move queen c2, which guards the knight. Now, this move is very weird to me. I'm triple checking everything, but I think we just take the knight and we say no compensation. The move queen c2, by the way, attacked the knight, but it also gave them the ability to play knight c5. So in response, I would have probably played the move queen d6 to guard c5 and to guard our own knight and to renew the threat of being able to take their knight for free. And I was still looking for what they were going to play after that. So if we go back to this position here, the move queen c2 is what I expected. Now they just resign, and this is frankly ridiculous. This is a terrible game, so we are going to sneak in a second game, mind you, of a much better quality, but just to really indicate some differences here. By the way, I'm not sure about d4. d4 looked fine to me. Knight a4 forced. b6 is not a bad move. b6 is completely playable. It's very committal. And I was expecting knight takes d4 here, in which case we are going to show this variation, right? Here's what I had calculated. Knight takes d4. Now, I don't want to take with the pawn that hangs the knight, so we have to take with the knight, giving up the exchange. But now we have this move bishop h3, hitting the rook. And, importantly, it hits the bishop via discovery. So if they were playing a move like, rook e1, we take the bishop with compensation. We have more than enough. And just to show that here, the material is equal. We have 2 minor pieces for the rook, so the material is equal. But we have a mate threat on the board. Our bishop is a god, and our knight sits nearly untouchable on d4, where it is still applying pressure to the king, in conjunction with this other knight also maybe coming in very quickly to assist. And this knight is still just terrible on a4. I would have been very happy with this. That's what I had seen when I played the move b6. So this move didn't work to me. They chose e4 instead, which is wild to me because it looks like it hangs the knight. Now, the engine is saying this is only slightly better for black, but this is almost losing a knight. And here I think a lot of people get tied up with going for the knight immediately, hanging a pawn. I've certainly done this, right? I've certainly done it. And I think a lot of people also here would be like, well, it's hard to defend this pawn, so I'm just going to fianchetto and continue with development, but don't give up on your ideas. I preach it a lot. I'm going to preach it again. You say, I want to trap this knight. Make it work. Why doesn't this trap the knight? Because their knight escapes. So make it work. e5 here shuts down this bishop. It closes up the bishop permanently, and it adds a defender to c5, reinforcing a threat of b5. This is a move that I think a lot of people in the roughly 1200 to 1800 range don't play because they're like, well, the bishop's going to fianchetto, so I can't have the bishop go this way, but you need to stay flexible, and you need to keep your options open, especially when it creates such a strong threat of winning a piece. Especially, and like, it threatens to win a piece for one, so it's a strong move, but it also isn't a bad move. I mean, it also shuts down their bishop behind their own pawns. It's a very good move, and it helps control the center more, so these sacrifices are less likely to happen now that you have another pawn supporting it, right? So this move came very naturally to me, and I think these are moves that you have to stay flexible to find, knowing the bishop doesn't have to fianchetto just because you played a move like g6. Now, move c3 here struck me as very bizarre. I didn't think this was good. I thought they had to play the move b3 here to give their knight a retreating square, and I wasn't going to push. I was instead going to try to exploit this further by fianchettoing our own bishop and saying our bishop is now going to be the one wide open. They don't want to open this up. This is still awkward. We can now play a move like queen e7, defending everything. And we can fianchetto this bishop or go bishop a6, and we're going to play some more chess from here. This is what I envision. My opponent instead go to c3, and it reads only -1, but interestingly enough, they can't save the knight unless I am just drastically mistaken. The knight is dead. It's saying they should play a move like b4 here to try to seek compensation. b4 here is a very aggressive move that seeks to beat open the position and use the fact that I haven't castled yet in order to try to get something for the knight. It's a very high-level move. b4 here is not a move I had seen. I really like that move. I can see why it's only -1. Like, that's a lot of compensation for the knight. So there's that. My opponent took here, which is reasonable, and I think here a lot of people take the knight. I don't think it's wrong to take the knight. The engine disagrees. It's saying c takes d4 is the only -1 move, but b takes a4 is only equal, which makes some sense. I took here because the knight is still trapped. In this line right here, I want to ask yourself, how the heck are you going to keep defending everything? This center is going to crash. It's going to explode. The knight's going to take here if you defend the knight. And if you defend the knight like this, they take the knight anyway, and then the center explodes. So I wasn't willing to win a knight for if they get 2 pawns for it at the bare minimum and have my center collapse. So that's why I really like c takes d4 in order to kind of restrict my opponent, because at the end of the day, the knight is still trapped. That is how I played this game. Let's go ahead and queue up the next one. All right, queuing up game 2. All right, we get the white pieces. I do like playing with the white pieces more. Against Naders 307. We're going to see a caro kann. I don't know. I feel like we're going to play an advanced variation, and this is an old repertoire. I've been playing the fantasy a lot recently, but we're going to go back and play the tall variation because there are some. I don't know. I want to say there's fun variations in the tall. Now the move h6 is a move, h5 is the main move, but h6 is a move, and I like to punish this with a very quick g4. The whole idea is to demand the bishop leaves, and we get to play the move e6. Now this may look very weird to some of you. The point is, if they take, they have two doubled e pawns, which makes it very hard for this bishop to get out, and the light squares are very weak. So this is a pawn sack to slow down their kingside development. Wow. H5? And if we see this move, or any move that isn't captures, basically we take here and say you're no longer getting castled. That's the other main point. Now this move strikes me as very weird as well. I haven't seen that. Now I'm debating knight f3. I really like knight f3. To just continue to hammer to the position. Now the other idea is bishop d3 and just say we're going to win the light square bishop. And we are going to commit to the standard principle that I found in this variation after a move like bishop h7. And after e6, you go bishop d3 to try to gain exclusive control over the light squares. Now this is a move that I don't think is very good because we can immediately win tempo, and that's a double attack on their bishop, and it's very interesting, but we can continue to add pressure one more way, and I think we're going to do that with, I wanted to say knight f3, but they can actually take here, but then we might be able to take. Ooh. Let's go ahead and play the move knight f3, giving away the g-pawn for a specific reason. The specific reason is activity. It's always activity. After knight g4, I think we calculate bishop takes h7. And if rook takes h7, I think we take on g5, exploiting the fact that their h-pawn is pinned. Right? We exploit this h6 pawn. Now try to calculate this in your head, right? Knight takes g4, bishop takes h7, rook takes h7, h takes g5. And if they take back, we can either fork them with knight g5, or we would have been able to play rook takes h7 check. They do elect to take our bishop, and that's fine. We are going to, of course, play queen takes d3. There are some variations where c takes d3 is aligned, but it's not here. Now, we want to continue this attack, and of course, the square that sticks out to me is the exclusive g6 square. Let's do everything we can to get something there. I'm going to say, why don't we get the knight? So if they go to a light square, we can play this check, and then it's mate. That's the variation. If they go up the board, we have queen f5 check. We're going to see it. We're going to see it, ladies and gentlemen. Queen f5 check. Where does their king go? Sideways, and then what's the move to end the game? Of course, knight f7 check, picking up the queen with no pawn compensation, funny enough. Now, we can continue to try to be a nuisance, which is something I like doing, but there's no need. Let's go ahead and just take the queen. No complications. Now, they do still have some activity, but the activity is going to be very limited. Once we take here, I'm expecting a resignation, to be completely honest. There's no need to play on after losing a queen like this. There is nothing to fight for. Now they're clearly looking to try to push the pawn, which is cute. We don't give them the time of day. If they push, we take with a bishop. Hello? So they go back, which is fine. I mean, I guess you could call it fine. We have another simple solution too, and it is, the simple solution here is we can either go hunt for mate, which I think is the very applicable. The move rook h3, rook b1. This is... Actually, I like rook h3 with the sole intention of if they try to push this away, we're going to continue to try to just take their head off, right? We just take their head off. The queen can come back to the light squares to give checks on the light squares. The dark square bishop here is very good. It can also come back to d2, hitting these squares. The pieces aren't stepping on themselves, and so that's why I'm willing to go for this. Now, taking the knight, of course, is winning. Taking this pawn, of course, winning. Finding some other continuation like a4 is winning, knight c3 is winning. Every move wins here. I'm just showing you one way of winning this game that I, personally, really like. Now, I'm not going to hold back. The whole point was to put my rook here. So I'm going to put my rook here and say, where's your king go? Now, it only has one square. But hold up. What's the point? Point is that they're almost mated. Look at how close it is to mate. Let's put the bishop here. What are we threatening? Check. Well, then what? Then their king runs away. Check. Check. This is one way of winning the game. You don't have to just go win all the pieces. You certainly can go win all their pieces and promote another queen. You can, stop all their play and squeeze them to death. You can also sometimes just go for checkmates like this. Thank you all for stopping and hanging out and exploring these two miniatures with me. One line I wanted to talk about this game here was, by the way, I've never seen the move G5 before. I don't think ever. But the things I wanted to talk about was here. What if they? Sorry, I need to open up the analysis board. What if Black takes on E6 here? Which I've had probably 30 games or so where Black has taken on E6 here. It's a common line. The whole point is that this bishop is going to struggle to get out, and these light squares are incredibly weak. Both of these pawns are backwards, so it's hard for them to push through. It's hard for them to, beat this down and get play. They can. There are ways that I've seen it happen. There's ways I've lost games where eventually Black has played E5 and I've lost. But the point here is that this isn't, while it's a pawn sacrifice, it's a pawn sacrifice that hems in 3 of their pieces. You're going to trade this light square bishop with bishop D3. And frankly, let's say they're like, nah, I don't want to trade. You take it anyway, and then you put your queen here. The whole point is to get the queen here and attack the light squares. That's a mate threat, and it's a threat on the rook. It's very hard to stop both. They have one move. It's this. And you're still happy to go queen g6 anyway, and this is a fun variation. That is the point of the pawn sacrifice line, is that it's hard for them to get their bishop out. But a line that happened in the game that I was looking at distinctly. Where was it? It was here. There was an line here where there was knight to g4 is an interesting option. And here, again, it's about abusing the light squares. We want to do that. So I was going to take. They were going to take. And I was going to take on g5. Now, what the heck is the point in this? Well, they can't take back. We're happy to put our knight in, and we also are potentially trying to push this pawn through, as well as play a move like queen d3. Now, I probably would have sat here and recalculated again. Why don't I play queen d3 here? Because these are some things that you should be calculating. What if I play it this move instead of after I take here? And I wasn't 100% sure, but this was the idea I was going to go for, was some line of queen d3 and taking on g5. This is truly a pawn sacrifice now. Where I was willing to give away the pawn, and there was not much to do for it. If we take back, they can't recapture, so it's kind of a pawn sacrifice. But if we went queen d3, I was fully willing to gambit everything and go after their king, although I don't think they can ever really accept any material here, and I don't think they win any material. Temporary pawn sacrifice. And then here, bishop g7 is a complete misunderstanding of the position and the criticalities of what's happening to their pieces. The king is in danger. I've been saying it this whole time, but we were talking about light squares because that's what's under attack. The light squares, and to me, dark squares are all completely under Black's control. Every single one of them. I don't care. Have your dark squares. We know what we're attacking. This whole attack is based on g6 being weak. Don't care about anything else. So we attack it. If they would have dropped the king back here, we have a very simple fork. They can come back up the board, and you can either repeat if you're so inclined. You can leave your knight here. You can take the rook and get a material advantage, which might be best. To be fair, there might be a better move in this position. There might be a better move than throwing the knight in here. Maybe the best move, and I think a very reasonable choice, is potentially queen g6, just trying to set up mate. I think that's reasonable. I think you can take on g5 here. I think that's reasonable also. I think there are many ways of playing this position, but I was going to go for knight g6 and take the rook. That's what I would have done. If our opponent would have went here, simply give the check. They only have one move, and it's mate. The other critical line here after this check was the move king g8, which I think was the best choice. And here, I was still trying to find my favorite response. I was leaning towards h takes g5 and trying to win the rook outright. That way I can try to incorporate my queen into attack, potentially. Now, there's also the move knight g6 here, which I think is very reasonable. And if they want to keep the rook, rook h7. And now trying for something like this, because if they take back, we have a double attack on this rook here. And this might have been what I went for. The problem is they can actually take with check. And so this is the blunder. Oh boy, good thing that didn't happen. I would have struggled. See, everyone misses things on occasion. Again, I was still looking at the variation here. By the time my opponent had already played this move, I was still looking at it and trying to figure it out. I had already calculated this move is bad, this move is probably bad, and this move is bad, and I was still dealing with king g8. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you guys have learned something. I'm going to try to get uploads to have more frequently. I have been sick the past 2 weeks. I know right on channel launch I've been sick. Please don't expect another 2 weeks before a video. I think you can expect approximately 2 days at the most. Anyway, thank you once again. Seriously, you all are great. Any questions, feel free to bug me. I do offer coaching. Feel free to send me an email, leave a comment. I will answer any questions. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you later.